All right, everybody, welcome back to a brand new weekly episode of the TrickCast. We got Amir Abdelazim in the house, tech leader with decades of experience in the telecom space, a founder of multiple companies, currently consulting, investing, and helping deep tech companies and telecom companies. And myself coming from a SaaS tech background, actively working in tech recruitment. So we got kind of two sides of the coin, let's say, as it comes to tech news, global geopolitical events that are affecting the tech landscape as well. So anything else to add there, Amir, before we kick it off with today's topics?
You covered it all. I love
Perfect.
talking to you like as usual. Nice to meet you, Alex.
Nice to see you as well. Yeah. All right. So today we got slightly different topics, not just purely AI. We're going to mix in a bunch of other topics, which are the crossover at AI, but not really the brain of the operations, let's say. And those of you who are tuning in for the first time, make sure to check out our YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We got a lot of clips, a lot of interesting up-to-date news if you want to know what's happening in the world, how that might affect your career, your business, your startup. So without further ado, let's start with the first topic. We're sitting here debating how to pronounce actually the name of the company, but basically Qualcomm announced the acquisition of Arduino. Sorry for the Italians if I'm mispronouncing. And it's an Italian open source hardware and software company known for its electronic prototyping boards. So they just closed the deal now in early October. We don't know what are the financial terms, but basically they're going to keep operating it as an individual subsidiary. What it means is they make their own decisions. They keep doing what they're doing, but basically the ownership falls under Qualcomm. I guess the main point for that, Amir, maybe you can get deeper into this, that they maintain the brand, the tools, the product lines, the support for different chip vendors, but Qualcomm is coming in as kind of the big brother and maybe helping with visibility, integrating their technology into their devices and so on. So what are your thoughts or what else are we missing in terms of the context here, Amir?
When I read the announcement, I actually thought okay, couple of months ago, we were talking about Qualcomm trying to acquire Intel. What is this company that Qualcomm decided not to acquire Intel and acquire? And as usual, as how my brain works, let me dig in deeper and see who is the musician here, who's the scholar that we need to follow. And that magician and scholar is actually Massimo Banzi. I needed to check who's this guy? What is this? What is this company that actually has 33 million users? And what's the philosophy behind it? And why would Qualcomm be interested in this? Massimo is a teacher. He decided that I want to democratize engineering. Engineering needs to be to everyone, as hurtful as it is to me as an engineer. But the guy managed to make it actually. So he created a fantastic idea of small kits of hardware, open source tools, and made anyone that can come and use his systems and create his own technology. So out of Arduino, there's almost like millions of solutions that came on IoT sensors and edge cloud on areas that is all in the front end of technology. And then looking back at Qualcomm is leading in the phones and leading on the chipsets of the wireless. Okay, why would Qualcomm want to buy this company? It's very interesting, right? It's IP-based company buying an open source company. Like Qualcomm makes money by selling IP closed.
And can we simplify it maybe for the audience? Anybody who's not familiar with open source technologies, basically stuff that you upload to a repository like GitHub, for example, that other people can use on the premise that they cannot take that code and commercialize it. And from my experience, usually the most revolutionary, the most history-altering technologists, let's say in the past 30, 40 years, have been like strong proponents of open source, like including the creator of Linux, for example, or real hardcore engineers. They work in terminal, they work with Linux, they work with Ubuntu. So it seems a bit of a contradiction that a company that's obviously commercial, that's got so much power, is buying something that these guys that we own can basically innovate, and they're going to make the technology open for everybody. So how is the mathing over here, Amir?
Yeah, interesting, right? Then the solution can be, because I really need to watch and observe this closely. And I think the solution here can be is a lot of the users of Arduino and the chipsets and the cards of Arduino is working on the edge, on the car, on the new wearables, the sensors. If we all say that mobile as a mobile is already fading out, and what is coming after that is billions of sensors and robotics and wearables. then actually the company that can be sitting on 33 million who knows how to do that is Arduino. Qualcomm gets access to 33 million engineers who knows how to work on the edge.
And how do they take that technology and commercialize it for their own purposes potentially? Or a certain share of the profit from Arduino? Or how do you think the commercial aspects are going to work?
I actually think they will not touch anything that is happening except imposing and giving a lot of Qualcomm technologies for free inside to the Arduino users and let them create all the sensors or the edge AI equipment that is compatible with Qualcomm technology and somehow similar to the Tesla charging story. Like, let the guys develop on our products and make sure that those are developing the system. Because try to think with me on the ecosystem, Alex. How many live, like we're 7 billion on Earth? We will manage to create, what, 7 billion handsets a year? And give, assuming each one gets a handset a year. So the maximum population you can sell, the market size of proper handsets is 7 billion at any point of time, right?
Yeah.
While the market of a sensor is at least, on the best, it would be 30 to 40 billion in the coming 5 years.
Your fridge, your washing machine, your wearable sleep tracker, your doors, your garage opener, everything potentially can be added to the cloud, to the IoT infrastructure.
It will, because otherwise, if we are talking about AI, we've been talking about the brain of the AI. Now we're talking about the fingers and the senses of the AI. How would the AI see and perceive the world? Like we as humans, we are able to see, we're able to sense, we're able to smell, touch. But AI does that through IoT, through sensors. And if you think about a machine that is actually a robot, like that is doing production, let's take Optimus from Tesla. It one has a lot of sensors around for thermal, for pressure, for needs, and every sensor in the hand or in the eyes or in the head of a robot. I guess a robot, I would not, on the best guess, assume that the robot would have not less than 1,000 sensors inside every robot. So if we're talking about, so imagine that population. My guess, Qualcomm is gonna penetrate the production of sensors through those people because you really cannot produce it alone. It's almost impossible, but you want them to produce on a standard or produce at least on a chipset or a product or a stack. And Qualcomm have been always very strong in creating this stack to make sure that your phone, your signal, your RF is processed on this type.
And maybe to draw some parallels to the conversations we had in the past about chargers, for anybody who maybe hasn't seen those episodes, we're big fans of Elon on the show, Elon Musk. And one of the things that we discussed in the past, as Amir, is whenever they were creating the battery packs and the chargers for the Teslas, one thing Elon did is he open sourced the patents. And again, open sourcing the patents means that, hey, here's the schematics, here's the way to build my technology, here it is online. So it saves companies a lot of money because now they're like, oh, we don't need to come up with teams of R&D engineers to come up with this on our own. So let's use his schematics. But the advantage that this has for Elon or for the rest of the world is that he's quickly able to get everybody invested into going the direction of a single unified type of technology, whether it's the voltage, whether it's the connector from the charger to the car, and so on and so forth. So it makes it much easier for worldwide distribution, for production, for manufacturing, as opposed to the topic that we discussed recently in one of our previous episodes with the railways, that there was a lot of issues that the railway tracks were different sizes for different companies and they're all privately owned. And that was one of the reasons as well. There's been stories like this in the logistics sector as well before we had the modern containers. So what you're saying is basically Qualcomm wants to take the lead on making a unified standard for how other companies that go into the sphere program, let's say, their technology or build their technology, that we can communicate on the same frequency where we're not interfering in terms of the waves that we're using and that kind of stuff. So is there anything maybe to add to that before we tie this into the next topic with Walmart?
I would be very curious to see how the visionary leader behind Arduino, Massimo Panzi, would actually behave. This is the guy that is literally he breathes democratization of technology. And one of his famous quotes is, I don't think this generation should consume technology. I think this generation should produce technology. And if you're not producing technology, you don't exist. So, and he almost broke his company into two like 10 years ago because one of the co-founders decided to start commercializing.
Mm,
So, and then
my
it's
God.
it's
I'd be, I wish that guy was in charge of OpenAI.
yeah, yeah, and the fact that now dealing with Qualcomm, I'm really looking forward to see where this ends. We should really circle back to this soon. So my bet here, Qualcomm is finding its way to the mass, the people that will really create the new small hardware that will replace the new market of the phones in the coming 20 years, and let them all speak Qualcomm language, if I can call it this way. And that's what I think.
Yeah, well, I like it. And I think that's a good transition to our next topic, which is Walmart, that we don't usually hear often in the tech news. So, to give a bit of an introduction, Walmart made a deal for battery free sensors. And they basically collaborated with Wiliot to deploy battery free Bluetooth sensors called IoT Pixels, which is going to be deployed across all of their retail supply chain. So, um, yeah, what is the context there? Basically, from my understanding, the sensors can harvest energy from their surroundings without needing a battery or something like that. And we had this in the past, right? Whether it's self-winding watches, whether it's something using your body heat, for example. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Amir? And can you give us some more context of what's Walmart's play beyond maybe the obvious one, how they're going to use this in their own stores?
It's two angles actually, but back to Einstein, like energy cannot be recreated. Energy is only transferred. Few years ago, I was reading research, and then I found in the new trends shy technologies. I was like, what is shy technologies? Is it dating apps or what is this? Like, what is shy technologies? And then digging deeper, it is actually the dust, electronic dust or electronic sensors that are surrounding you to make sure it captures data as much as possible and make sure we are in the back reorganizing this data. And if you think about the value chain of AI, you would see that to reach to the brain, you need to submit data, and submitting data, it needs to come from sources. We are ones, we do data entry ourselves when we talk to the engines, but there's other ways of actually entering data, like filming, which is the easiest one, or sound, like what we're talking. But what about the rest? How's the machine moving? How is the measurements? How all of that? And that's where sensors come in: humidity, temperature, all of that. And then here comes this amazing part: chipset on the size of a postal stamp that can transfer heat transitions, radio waves, pressure into an electricity, and then sends the data back to hub that they have, like a gateway hub. And okay, there should be a catch, right? And that's where I was trying to dig. Okay, there should be a catch. How is this happening? Like, okay, it will expire soon. Like, it has a very small lifetime, like RFID, for example. Actually, it doesn't. It's almost a lifetime. Like, it's an infinite. Maybe it's expensive. It's 0.5 cent compared to a normal RFID of 0.3 cent. So I think this is amazing tech, really, like, and it changes the game, changes everything. And there is a catch, definitely, but I'll tell you the catch later, where it's still not actually everywhere. In that angle, Williot, the company in conversation here, and two amazing founders, they live in by there's a solution for every problem, because the only way that sensors can be mainstream is that you make it without a battery and you make it work like this. And they managed to harvest all the radio signals around us and make it change into a communication and send back over a Bluetooth to a standard hub and send that communication back to the data sensors on a 5 cent. Now, the reason I'm repeating the 5 cent is, why would someone try to put one sticker, a postal, on every parcel throughout the whole value chain of how the parcels move and think that this should replace humans. It must make sense commercially, because at the end of the day, assuming a one manpower on a shelf is able to move maximum 1,000 packages a day. So it should be 1,000 times 5 cents. That will be $50. It should be below his wage. Otherwise, it doesn't make economical sense. And I think this is the beauty of this acquisition. Now, getting back to the angle of Walmart, why would Walmart do that as well? Like, Walmart has been trying to automate their shelves and their supply chain. And here, what I think why Walmart is doing it better than anyone else when it comes to AI use cases, they're doing it for the right reasons. Because everyone else, when they talk about the AI use cases, they talk about AI to reduce cost, to make layoffs, to make cost reduction, or just use AI to use AI. Like, everyone is using it. But Walmart has one of its basic
To
foundations.
summarize your emails.
Yeah, kind of, exactly. I don't want to work more. So Walmart, one of their foundation is that they allow the suppliers to follow the stock of the shelves, so they can decide when to send the new supply. And throughout actually the last decade, they have been trying to always create this visibility as predominant as possible. It's one of their strengths in reality. That's how Walmart shelves are never empty, actually. Because the supplier himself, democratization again of how the supply is going. You are seeing in the second when your stock is going down from certain shelves. So previously, they have been trying to do it with people manually. And then they started to do it with robots, which made a lot of mess. In some of the funny videos, you will see it a lot available online when the robots started messing up the shelves, like comedy movies. And of course, with the digital tickets. So in Walmart, in most of Walmart stores, the stickers are not paper. It's actually electronic. So in this case, they have managed to get their hands on this company, get their solution to be the new art, if I can call it this way. But I have a question. Why they didn't buy it?
Maybe if you get involved and you start controlling and dictating too many decisions, then you lose the competitive edge of what they know as maybe outsiders. In terms of they're not in the retail industry, they're in their sensor manufacturing industry, right? So if you let somebody who's not maybe the best expert in that particular space, and you put them in there because for corporate reasons you have to have a certain board structure and whatnot, it ruins the magic, isn't it?
It would. But I would try to direct you a little bit towards the economics of this industry itself. If we are saying that this sensor harvests from RF, from radio frequency is surrounding you, then I would need this sensor everywhere, right?
I guess, yeah.
Do you think if Walmart owns all the sensors, would Carrefour take it?
That's right. Yeah, I guess it's not going to be as popular for somebody to buy proprietary sensors from a competitor potentially.
And if I want the bottle of water and the paper cup, my AirPods, all of that to be having those sensors, because here is the magic of this technology. With these sensors all next to each other, they feed each other energy. Because at every time a sensor sends a message to a hub, another sensor gets charged. It's crazy. It's zero power. It's like nothing. So the more of these sensors are there, the more I will actually benefit, the more the connections will be easier.
And you're
So
drawing the parallel again to the topic we just discussed with the railways and the topic we just discussed with what Qualcomm is doing, that you basically want to get everybody on the same wave, and instead of having to subsidize the whole market and sponsoring sensors for everybody, let's make it cheap enough. We'll skim the cream off top of the profit of what they're selling to our competitors, but them using the same technology, the same waves, the same everything as us makes it easier for us to make it a positive sum game where 1 + 1 = 3, as I think you like to say,
exactly.
right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think this is why they didn't buy it. But and now I'll tell you where is the catch. So technologically, it's wild because now every sensor is talking to a sensor. So that's fine. So there's imagine in the virtual space here that we have sensors passing like this, talking to each other. But the data of this sensor needs to go somewhere to tell me what happened, right? And that sensor needs to talk to something. And here's the catch. That technology is still, and I think this is the only thing that why this company now is not leading the whole value, is you need to put a small box similar to the fire alert or the fire sensors in the areas around it, so it can capture the data and send it back.
And to make it maybe simple for somebody to understand, imagine you're somewhere in the woods hiking and you got your mobile phone and all of a sudden you run out of network, right? And you're somewhere deep in the bushes. Your phone might still be recording your GPS data, for example. It might be recording other kinds of data, but it cannot transmit it or update it with the main server, with your WhatsApp messages, with your Facebook status update, because it needs to get a connection to the internet. As soon as it does it, the data gets uploaded. So from my understanding, this technology is basically if you have these little sensors everywhere, let's say there's no network in the range of 50 kilometers, these sensors will still communicate to each other. They'd collect the information that's passed from various sensors. As soon as one of them gets potentially access to the internet somewhere, then slowly that information, the signal will be communicated back to the areas that maybe don't have the coverage, right?
And
So,
exactly.
and that also works with the same concept with, let's say, decentralized technology, where you don't need to transmit the whole, let's say, massive data file in one go. That you have a lot of different nodes, you have a lot of different, let's say, antennas in different areas that are transmitting parts of the code that can be put all together to draw the big picture.
The only difference here is that to make sure that you have this sensor to that small size, it doesn't store.
That's right. Okay, understood.
So it needs to give it
Pass it on somewhere nearby.
simultaneously
Yeah.
on simultaneous. And if it doesn't pass it simultaneously, if that hub is not close by, then this is where the catch of this technology is yet. Because just think about it, the same scenario you had about you're in the bush. So why your phone is not communicating to the satellite?
Mhm.
It's far. I need power to communicate to the
Right.
satellite,
Right.
and if I don't have that enough power, I cannot. So the same case with these sensors, and then connecting the dot again to the whole story. That hub is important to be existing and economically making sense to be existing only when there is too many sensors. Hence, this technology is only making sense when it is crowd.
Like a major metropolitan city like New York, Chicago, Dubai, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's amazing now how actually the niche of getting into how to collect data with the new term that I love, the shy technologies and the electronic dust is getting through, but I think it's yet to evolve a lot, come a lot. Now we have seen completely self-sustainable with no power ecosystem. I love it. What do you think?
It's definitely interesting. I mean, I think the ideas aren't necessarily new, but the R&D, the engineering part is catching up to stuff that has been discovered a long time ago, right? If people want to even go back to somebody like Tesla that had ideas about transmitting energy wirelessly, that you don't need cables and stuff like that. Again, it might be out there, but there's been, let's say, recycled cycle of those ideas over the past 120 years. And yeah, I think just kind of exciting because engineering is catching up to it. And I'm actually in the middle of an interesting podcast where um, maybe we can get into another topic, but they're basically using, let's say, 10 industrial tools that are available to any kind of factory, let's say, in the United States, to manufacture very specific parts that are a fraction of the cost that traditional contractors would normally pay. So it's kind of interesting that you can basically 3D print 10 different parts, put them together, and maybe layer some AI on top of it. And the hardware requirement is very minimal, that you don't need to have a highly specialized, like a chip manufacturing plant that you need like years and years of expertise to build, right? So I think it's cool that we're going in that direction. And maybe we can tie it all together. I know before we started recording, you talked about edge cloud, you talked about AI at the edge. Now we have RF energy harvesting, which is what we just discussed with radio frequency energy harvesting with these sensors. How does all of that tie together? And can you maybe draw the remaining map and the remaining territory of this story for us, Amir?
So the idea that been what I've been like really like thinking about when I'm talking about these two stories of today. Today when when I was thinking of the stories, there was other interesting stories. Like for the first time, for example, Europe is actually seizing a company in reality and taking control of it, which would have been a very interesting story. But I ended up with you discussing that maybe we land a little bit on this one because this topic is completely new for almost of our audience, and I would claim it's new for many of the people that are observing the wave of the AI from far. Um, AI is as good as the data it gets, and the use cases is as good as the reason behind it. And I always like to re-emphasize this with the team. And in these two stories that we talked about today, the fact that you're able now to actually get the data from the edge and bring it closer to the and store it widely, it's a value chain that is missing. Think about building an advanced intelligence. Again, I don't like to call it artificial intelligence anymore because I think it's been abused. To get an advanced intelligence or an advanced reasoning machine that actually does close to human mindset, it needs to also capture sensors for that. So going into the IoT, which is a term that I think our audience also need to make sure that they know, the Internet of Things, how you actually capture the data from the physical real world and then pass it back through a connectivity median and then send it into a centralized cloud to be processed and send you back the response. And now think about it this way. You're collecting from a place and then you're sending to another place miles away, thousands of miles away, do the process of the decision and then send it back. In this round trip, would you trust your car that actually is going to decide autonomously on how it is working to stop in the next red traffic light or don't harm the next pedestrian if the decision is done thousands of miles away from inside your car? That's
Right.
where you will not
Interesting. Hmm.
trust, right? That's where you need the cloud to be inside the car. The decision needs to be inside the car. And for me to put the decision inside the car, that's the term that we call edge cloud. I need a small cloud very close to me. It can be a really edgy cloud in a building close by in the street, or it can be inside the car, a terminal where the decision can come in. And that
Like
edgy cloud,
what Starlink is doing, for example, now providing Wi-Fi to American Airlines, I think.
something like this,
Yeah.
but also making sure that the brain comes closer to the decision. And that's where these sensors are being evolving again now, and then reducing the time of the decision. And want to reduce that time of the decision. That's where the term edge cloud is. So I wanted our audience here to hear these two terms, the IoT and the edge cloud and edge AI. AI at the edge. I don't need to send the data back to the brain. Let actually the decision happen in the terminal there. Those two technologies are evolving, and I think it's a good area for a lot of researchers and developments and startups and innovators to find their space in that. But last fun part for me is actually even if you are playing games, you can make a very interesting cell, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So any parting ways there, Amir, aside from, that's an interesting area maybe for people who are engineering minded to explore and go in that direction. Is there any other practical advice that people can take away from that before we wrap it up?
I think no. The practicalities is when you think about your use case, because I've came across a couple of use cases lately. When you think about use cases that you are trying to do and missing the part that where the decision is being done, that causes a lot of things to fail actually. And the point is that please focus on the user experience when you're talking about actually an AI engine, because I see lately people just shoving use cases up the throat of the customers and say, okay, here, use that, that's working. So and there's a lot of means existing in technology. And think about how Walmart, that giant, dug deeper to find a small company that does one small sensor that will make their life and the solution easier for everyone else.
Real problems don't come up with technology to solve imaginary problems that haven't been validated yet.
And
Scratch your
find
own
the
itch.
solution because it's existing. There is no news under the sun. Everything is existing. People, our collective mind is beautiful. The crowd wisdom is amazing, actually. There is someone somewhere, either one step ahead of you or one step behind you on your thinking process. And find them. Again, platforms like Arduino is a good proof for that, actually. Like you will find proper solution if you dig enough for your user experience there. That would be my sincere advice of today, actually.
Well, let's wrap it up there. I hope this was informative for the audience, and we'll keep an eye on some of these stories like Qualcomm in the future. Thanks again for those of you watching. Let us know in the comments what you thought and what are the topics you would want to see covered. And until next time, Amir, Speak to you next week. Stay tuned for new episodes.
Thanks, Alex.
Take care. Bye-bye.